Hello and welcome to the Coaching Crowd podcast with me, Jo Wheatley, and my friend and co-host Zoe Hawkins.
Hi, everybody. This week we are here to talk to you about coaching as an associate with one of the digital platform companies such as BetterUp or Ezra, and there are others as well. And we wanted to share this experience with you because we were at a AI and digital coaching conference recently, and there were a lot of coaches in the room that didn't know what digital coaching was or hadn't had any experience of coaching as associates or even knowing that this opportunity existed. So we wanted to share that. Also acknowledging we get a lot of inquiries through our Facebook group, the Coaching Crowd, of coaches exploring different opportunities of working for these digital platforms. So we thought we would share our experiences and some of our thoughts around them.
Yeah, and I think we'll start by saying we've done it. We have worked as associates of a digital platform, doing one-to-one coaching. I then had a gap, but I am currently doing group coaching work for a digital platform that is close to my heart, supporting women in senior leadership positions. So when we're talking about digital coaching with these platforms, we're talking about a situation where you go through a recruitment process with one of these organizations. They ensure that you are a qualified and accredited coach, that you can coach. So you will need to coach somebody, demonstrate that you meet those competencies. You'll usually then specify the type of coaching that you're interested in and that you're experienced in working with. And they really act as a matching provider. So they get contracts with organizations and they then have a portfolio of coaches, and they offer the individuals, the managers or the leaders or aspiring managers from these organizations matches with their coaches. So we thought what we'd do is we'd go through a little pros and cons list with you today, to help you decide if it's something that might be of interest to you. Either if you're now thinking about training to be a coach and thinking, well, how would I make a living from it? I really want to, but how do you do that? This is a common way that people do by building out their portfolio with their coaching. Digital coaching with these matching organizations often can form a part of your strategy. And then we'll talk about the cons. So some of the drawbacks of doing this, so that you can kind of reflect on them all and reach your own conclusion. So Zoe, do you want to start with some pros?
Yeah, I think place I want to start is recognizing that when you are starting out as a coach and building your business, there can be a huge amount to think about. Like, what's my niche going to be? What sort of coaching do I actually enjoy? Who do I want to work with? What's my style of coaching? How am I going to build my experience? So I think when you think about digital coaching, one of the great things about these platforms is they provide clients to you. So they do the hard work. They're going out, securing clients at scale with organizations. So, for example, they may have a contract with an organization like Facebook, and Facebook may offer their coaching instead of to a very small pool of internal employees. They may offer it across the board to thousands and thousands of employees. And so therefore, if they're offering that access, they need coaches to support that. So as you're kind of in that space of starting out and probably thinking about 300,000 different things that you may want to do in your business, if you can secure work with one of these particular bodies, the clients will arrive to you. You don't have to go out and market yourself and gain and secure clients. So I think that makes it very easy and very accessible in order to get started in business. So I think that's a really obvious place to begin.
Yeah. So if you're not keen on the business development part of running your own business, then you might find that, working with one of these matching platforms could be really helpful to you. I think as a follow-up to that is that depending on the qualification that you do, think about accreditation. So you want to get qualified as a coach first, and then what follows from that is accreditation, choosing whichever body you're most aligned to. They require you to have a specific number of coaching hours for each level of accreditation that they have. So the EMCC, the first level for accreditation is 50 hours, then 100 hours, then 250, and so on. The ICF, their lowest level is 100 coaching hours. So you might, depending on the training that you do, you're going to pick up a certain amount of coaching hours. What we found in our experience of working with these platforms really helpful is it really helped us to accelerate our coaching hours. So each week or each month, we would populate our availability for each given week. And that might change. For us, it did, with different commitments, family commitments, work commitments. So for us, it's really great, the flexibility. Now, every provider is different, and it may have changed since we were coaching. But at the time, that was really helpful to us. And so we were able to build our hours up, and that's what helped us get to master practitioner level. Now, getting to that level doesn't only require a certain number of hours. There's lots of other elements that you need to do. But if we just look at building the hours up, if you've got to find, each individual client, that you're going to coach for 9 hours, 12 hours, how many hours it is, that's a lot of time spent finding those clients if you're not working with a platform or have a contract yourself for a large number of hours with an organization. So it can really accelerate that.
Yeah. And I think broadening that one out even further, hours for accreditation, but hours equals experience, so you're going to become a better coach the more you coach. It's the same for all skills. The more you do it, the better you get, particularly if you're engaging in reflective practice and supervision, and really taking the opportunity to learn from your practice. So yes, hours for accreditation. And also as a beginner coach, the best thing you can do off the back of a qualification is continue to coach at scale so that you're able to maintain that level of practice that you're used to during your coaching qualification. So it's really great for coaches to build their experience. And many of these digital platforms have different access levels. So at this conference, Ezra was sharing, they have 3 levels of coaches. So there are some coaches who work with the more junior populations who perhaps are newer to coaching, right through to those who then work with their more senior executive leaders, which are coaches that tend to have more experience. So even within these digital agencies, you can see that there is a sort of progression route, I guess, within there based on the experience that you're able to bring to the table.
I think when we're talking about it's, the clients are sort of provided to you once you pass the recruitment process. Perhaps we need to specify. And the great thing is that you get paid regularly. So there is a real rhythm to it. You do get paid. You put your invoice in, or you complete your number of hours, and you get paid at the same time each month. And when you're starting out working for yourself, if you're working with individual clients, you may find sometimes that there is a challenge around when you're getting paid and at different times. So if you're somebody that needs to have a certain amount of income coming in at a particular point each month, and you're used to getting that from paid employment, working for one of these digital platforms can be really helpful in that way. And also, just building on what you were saying, Zoe, like, how do you get good as a coach? You get good, you get better through experience, those coaching hours, but also CPD, going hand in hand. And we can't say for all, but we do know that certainly some of the digital platforms provide a degree of CPD, continuous professional development, for the coaches that work for them. And when we did it, we were able to choose particular CPD things that we wanted to do. I don't think we were necessarily paid for the CPD, but we certainly had access to it. And, our contribution was time, because it had a value to us as coaches as well. And for many coaches starting out, trying to build their practice up, thinking about investing in CPD can be a bit daunting until the books are balancing in that way. So again, it can be very helpful in those stages.
And it's not just beginner coaches, so that, there may be a hurdle in becoming recruited at the first instance, but there are, there are open and closed kind of recruitment campaigns that happen frequently with these organizations. But I think even experienced coaches, there can be a role to play here. The CPD that we experienced was high quality. That it certainly didn't compromise on quality because it was internal to this organization. There had some thought leaders that shared CPD with us, and it was great. And we're still connected with many of those people today. So, for experienced coaches, it can also bring you community. it can bring you community as a beginner coach as well. But there can be lots of reasons that motivate you to join one of these digital agencies. Now, we can't talk to the quality of the communities that exist within them, but we do know that those agencies work hard to look after their coaches and create and foster a sense of community. And also just knowing that you are not alone in that experience, and you can reach out and make connections with other coaches who work for the same organization can help you to feel a sense of being part of a virtual team. So that may be a motivating driver. It's not about the money, it's not about the business development. You may have a flourishing business, but actually you'd really like to be a part of something. And when you're within these organizations, sometimes they also reach out for specialities. So in the organization we worked with, they would look for specialist communication coaches or specialist mental health coaches. So you can, if you have a specialism, that may be something you're able to bring to light inside the communities as well.
Yeah, if you speak more than one language, that's always a bonus. Another thing to consider is that you can learn how to coach in different formats. So when we trained to be coaches, we were doing formats of 6 1.5-hour coaching sessions, which is fairly typical of what you do. And then when we started working for the digital platform, they were 30 or 45-minute sessions. And initially I can remember thinking, oh my goodness, how on earth am I going to be able to condense, the content, that depth, which is what we're so passionate about. But you soon learn, along with your coachees, how to use that time. So what I found is that whereas normally outside of the digital platforms, I might coach for, each client 1.5 hours once a month. Actually, one of the things I really enjoyed was that on many of the contracts that these clients had to work with a coach, they could have half an hour every single week or 3/4 of an hour every single week. So actually we spent more time in a coaching relationship in the shorter formats than I would in my other coaching. But it really helps your agility as a coach, really helps you to check in. And obviously you need to support yourself still with coaching supervision. Now, it may be now that some of these digital platforms may offer supervision. I think somebody said to us the other day, there are about 150 different digital coaching matching platforms out there. So many, many, many different ones to choose from.
And I think one of the reservations of these working for a digital agency is the thought that you don't get to develop, close relationships with your clients. And I would say that's definitely not true. Like, there were some clients where we had long-term relationships, as you've described there, like half an hour every other week for like 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months. And you always needed to make sure you had a reason for coaching, so it didn't turn into a casual relationship. Still need to do your due diligence on kind of making sure there's no dependency and supervision and all of that. But all of that to one side, I felt I had some really strong coaching relationships, knew my clients very, very well. Many of them connected with me on LinkedIn. So for an ethics position, certainly when we were working, we were not to connect with our clients. And I still, to this day, sort of hold that policy in my own work. I let my clients connect with me because they may not want to identify you as their coach. However, I found that many clients would reach out, connect via LinkedIn. And so every now and again, they'll check in like, oh, hey, I've got this job, it's thanks to the coaching that we shared. And I love that because there's a real relationship that exists there. It isn't just a case of being an avatar that you pop up, you do half an hour of coaching and then they disappear. And the next time you get somebody different, you do get the opportunity to forge relationships with people, which I think is, it's really special, as it is in everyday coaching.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, and that thing around different formats and related to what I just said there is you can be yourself. So for most of these platforms, that you're not using a prescriptive model. It's not a case of having a sausage factory and a client comes and you move them through stage 1 to 6 and out they come at the other end. You're recruited for your expertise as a coach, and therefore you are expected to be who you are. And inside these platforms, you have the opportunity to create your own bio, to share your experience, and you're selected on the merit of the coach that you are, not for a particular format that you need to push through.
I think even if somebody's thinking, I don't know if this is for me or not, it's quite interesting or useful just to get a bit of experience doing it, to understand the industry, how it is, how it's changing. But if we consider some of the potential drawbacks, because we've just spent a bit of time talking about what can be benefits that you can experience, I think the drawbacks include, I think we touched a little bit upon this, you tend to receive a lower rate per hour when you're coaching for the digital platforms than you would charge if you're working for yourself and charging privately. And that's the trade-off between not having to do the business development, having the clients. So having said that, when I stopped doing it, I was earning more money from the associate work I was doing for the digital platform than I was earning in my day job. And that's what enabled me to be able to, to switch into it. So just bear that in mind, that you may need to coach more hours to make the money. And so you would need to decide if that was, something that was worth it for you as an individual.
I think the risk in that, which I think is also a drawback, is you can get hooked on providing availability, because whilst it does have a comparatively low pay rate, the more you coach, the more you earn. So if there is an endless stream of clients coming your way, you could potentially block out Monday to Friday, 9 till 4, and fill your diary with coaching clients, and you'd earn a pretty ticket for doing that. But that would be exhausting. Like, personally, I would find that exhausting. Now, some of these organizations will have a controls and an ethics lens on that, and make sure that they do limit the amount of people that you coach or the frequency in which you're coaching. But I'm sure there are still, it's a judgment call, isn't it? How much coaching is too much coaching? Who is one to decide that? So I think that is a very important ethical lens to hold as a coach and as an associate for one of these, is that what is going to be the right balance for you, and making sure that you aren't continually tempted just to add more and more availability if there is a free flow of clients coming your way.
I think when we were coaching for the organization that we're thinking of, we had to provide a minimum of 10 hours of availability per week. And I think that's fairly commonplace across these digital coaching providers. And then I'm pretty sure that there was a maximum as well. And I certainly know for the group coaching that I'm doing as an associate, you have a maximum of 3 groups that you can support at any one time. And I respect that, because it means that I'm familiar with the organization. It's worth me investing in the organization, but also it doesn't become the whole thing that I do. So I'm still doing other things. One of the drawbacks of coaching for these providers is, as I was saying, if you get drawn into doing it a lot, even with the cap, or even if you're not doing it so much, you may then not invest the time in building your own brand, getting your own name out there as a coach. Who is it you coach? What are the results that you can support people to get? And if you don't start doing it, it's kind of like you can shrink into your comfort zone, and then the thought of starting to build your own brand can feel bigger and bigger and bigger, and may then be something that you don't take the steps towards doing. So when you're making your decisions in those early stages, I think I'd encourage you to, not let fear get in the way. Like, if you choose, don't just go and work with these platforms because you're frightened of, trying to build your own brand. And what if it doesn't work out? And what if this? And what if that? Do it because you genuinely want to do that. And I would encourage you still to build your own brand. One of the drawbacks alongside related to this in working for digital coaching platforms, Zoe, you were talking earlier about, you don't necessarily connect with the people that you're coaching, and each organization will have their specific guidelines around contact with clients, but you don't tend to get testimonials. So whereas you would, if you were doing private coaching, you might ask your client if they would be happy to write you a recommendation or a testimonial, because that's your relationship with them. When you're coaching through another organization, you're typically not going to be permitted to do that. So, how will you demonstrate that. And of course, even in private coaching, some clients have amazing results, but still may not want to provide you with a recommendation for you to use, because actually the nature of the relationship is it's confidential and they want to keep it that way, which we totally understand.
Yeah. And I think I just want to talk to that point. Like, one of the reasons you and I left was because we weren't investing the time in our business. So our business was growing fairly organically, but we were still investing quite a lot of time in this other organization. And there was a moment where I was looking at what I was earning each month and thinking, oh, I've created another challenge for myself. Like, it's hard enough to leave a stable salary the first time. And the irony is I've just created that very same problem again of creating this stable salary that I've now got to step away from and into the risk again. As it happened, the decision was easy because I was aligned to what I was looking ahead to. Sometimes you need to leave the good to create, something even better. And that was very much the mindset that you had at the time. But if you know that you're somebody who finds that change and those steps challenging, that is something just to become aware of, and make sure that you have a plan, I guess is what we're saying, isn't it? Is plan for how you want the experience to be.
Yeah. And then I think the last thing that I want to say in terms of what I've personally experienced as the drawbacks or kind of pet irritations are having to engage with other people's platforms. So if I've got my email address for my coaching business, let's say let's say I was coaching for 2 different platforms, because lots of people do coach on a number of different matching platforms. You could just do one, but just to say that people do coach on a number of platforms. What if you've got an email address for every single one of those platforms? Even if it's just one, you've then got your work one, you might have a personal one anyway, and then you've also got another email address. But let's say they've also got their systems, their pages that you need to engage with that contain Q&As for you as a coach. It's where you book your CPD. You've got a platform where you've got to put your availability in. And so all of a sudden, you're then having to juggle multiple diaries, multiple systems. What's the password for this? You've got to log in and out of Zoom with different accounts or whatever you're doing. So just bear that in mind. So when I chose to do the group coaching this year for this particular group of people, it's a passion area for me. The clincher for me was I didn't have to have an email. I could keep my own email address and communicate with that. Yes, there's an app I need to use to communicate with my group members. That's fine. That's easy. And there are other pages, but maybe something to bear in mind when you're inquiring, if you choose to, with different platforms around what the requirements are related to that.
It might say more about your relationship with tech, Jo.
It might. I'm just thinking, but just scoping around, I think when we train to be coaches, because we want to help other people and empower other people. We also want to empower ourselves through the work that we do and create the life we want to live. So for me, simplicity is really important. And I think tech can be fantastic, but it also can be a barrier. So just knowing what how you want to work and staying aligned to your values, I'd encourage you to to think hard about that when you're making decisions about what you want your coaching practice or business to look like.
And as you were just talking there around the technology, I remember when they introduced a rating scale for coaching calls. So they had lots of different measures of progress. Obviously, one of the things these organizations need to do is show the impact and demonstrate the value. So at the end of each call, the client would need to rate the particular coaching experience they just had. And I can't remember it exactly, but I remember looking at it, and the rating scale was something like a 4-point scale that went from something like totally useless to life-changing with not much movement in the middle. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, like the pressure to have to want every coaching session to need to be life-changing. That didn't feel aligned. That was actually around the time I think that I exited that organization. It wasn't what made me exit, but I could see that there were different changes and things coming in that just, felt different to me and wouldn't have been necessarily the way that I would run things with my private clients. So yeah, that thing around making sure that the work is aligned to you, I think is really important. And then the only other thing that came up was when you were talking about availability and you put in your availability. Obviously, that is availability that is held for that client. And I think somebody can book within 24 hours of notice. At least that's what it was when we had it. So I could go to bed one night, wake up the next morning and have a client in my diary for like 9 a.m., for example, that wasn't there the night before. So there is an element of agility, I guess, that is needed.
That's the same as with Calendly and the other diary things, aren't they? When we have our conversations about those things too. What I loved when we originally started doing the associate work, it was a great fit for us at the time for lots of reasons. But what I still remember is the interest and the excitement that I had of like being part of a new wave. It was a new wave at that point in time, and we didn't know when we started, would we do it for, I think we ended up doing it for about 3 years as part of what we were doing. But we didn't know, like when we started out, and this was the same as the one I have been working with this year, is it's new to the UK, has been very successful in the US. And so I was interested to be part of a new wave of things and learning, with other people. And you're talking earlier about the community, and there were people that had been coaching in the associate organization, done one-to-one, or had come in contact with people in other places, and then also found similar people. And so when we went through our training, they're like messaging me and saying, "Joe, I remember you. Do you remember me from when this?" And so that was lovely, because often coaches do work on their own, or in small groups, and it's that feeling of actually we are like a family, we are a community, all with similar interests and passions. But hopefully,
sorry, I was going to say, I think our summary is that we had a very positive experience. It's not going to be for everybody, but there are definitely, lots of reasons why this could be a really good option for you as a coach beginning to build their business, or even as an experienced coach, if you find that some of what we're talking about is aligning with you today.
Feeling like we should build a list of associate coaching provider, digital associate coaching providers. So, just adding it to the list. So yeah, have a look around, do some research if it's something that resonates with you. And if you're thinking about training to be a coach, come take a look at our website, igcompany.co.uk. When you train with us, you also get access to our Coaching Crowd Business Lounge with over 38 different expert speaker sessions designed to help you with the stepping stones to set up and develop a successful coaching business.